It's a little crazy. Baltimore city officials releasing the highly anticipated after-action report on the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Fox 45 taking a deep dive into the failures of several agencies outlined in the document. The report leaving questions about safe streets unanswered. We press Monzi about the policy changes they say they're going to make. Plus, a vote of no confidence within Baltimore County Fire, what the fire union president is saying about problems within the department.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue to follow that breaking news tonight as city leaders release the after-action report on the Brooklyn Day mass shooting.
This mass shooting is one of the most painful chapters in our city's history, which has had more than its fair share of painful chapters. We lost 2 young lives.
Well, the report focuses on the shortcomings of the Baltimore Police Department, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and the Housing Authority. Each agency failing to identify the danger to the community and break up the massive block party before 2 people were killed, 28 others injured. Our team of reporters covering all angles for us tonight. Mackenzie Frost taking a closer look at the role Safe Streets workers played and why none of the workers who were there the day of the shooting warned police of possible threats. But we begin with Alexa Ashwell and more on the failures within the police department, which they are admitting to. Alexa?
Mary, yes, this report is nearly 200 pages, and in it, the Baltimore Police Department's failures mostly center on staffing, decision-making, and communication.
8 weeks after the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, the worst mass shooting in Baltimore's history, the city releases its after-action report.
We know we made mistakes.
Acting Baltimore Police Commissioner Rich Worley addressing the key shortfalls identified specifically within BPD. Findings in the report detail discretionary officers available to respond to the large crowd were never requested.
But we had over 100 officers available throughout the city.
And overall, cite communication and decision-making failures made by Southern District Command. As a result, Worley says multiple people were served with charging papers, and the district major has been reassigned.
They turned all their findings over to the Public Integrity Bureau. The Public Integrity Bureau has already served some members with charging papers for different charges during the incident. Yesterday, we did put a new major in the Southern District. He was promoted from Captain Jason Bennett, was promoted to captain, was moved to the Southern District, and the major in the Southern District was reassigned.
As for the investigation itself, the report pointing out due to the large area, debris, and people going in and out of their homes that night, it may have been possible to overlook certain pieces of evidence from the initial canvass. The acting commissioner questioned on this, as an arrest has yet to be made for the 2 people murdered on Brooklyn Day. The reward rising to $88,000.
It hasn't hampered the investigation. The only thing that hampered the investigation is we have multiple shooters with over 100 casings that we have to track and put on a drawing that shows where these casings came from. But the investigation hasn't been hampered. I'm not frustrated with the investigation. Our detectives are working around the clock. We still have conference calls to talk about where the investigation is at, and we will be making some arrests. So it is something that I wish we could go faster, but you can't force an investigation to go any quicker than the evidence and the manpower.
The acting commissioner there seemingly alluding to more arrests. 2 have been made, but again, no one has been held accountable for the 2 homicides. Now, Worley is in the midst of the confirmation process to officially be named BPD's next commissioner. Today, the mayor questioned if this incident and the findings in this report should disqualify him from the job.
This was like a few days in for the commissioner, right? And he understands and knows what's happening there. But what this report outlines for you and outlines for everybody is what happened and what should have happened and who should have acted, and we'll be holding those folks accountable. What would be disqualifying for the commissioner is nothing is there. There are no internal affairs things from him in his past. There are no misconduct and allegations. There is no inability for him to lead this department.
BPD also released footage from an officer's body-worn camera. Here it shows the officer responding to and rendering aid to the 20-year-old man who was killed in this mass shooting. Now, in this report, there was concern raised over a lack of body-worn camera footage, specifically from police completing calls for service throughout that day. The report calling this a potential policy violation that we'll be asking more questions about. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Well, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage now. While demanding accountability for Monzi's role, including Safe Streets, Mackenzie questioning leaders about what's changing. She has the very latest.
There's little accountability coming from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And what this after-action report indicates is just how many questions remain unanswered about how the Safe Streets program operates and what's expected from the violence interrupters.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today.
Taking a deep dive into the more than 170-page after-action report, you'll find the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement's response. Plenty of praise for the 45-day coordinated neighborhood stabilization response and a laundry list of nonprofit providers offering services after shots were fired. The pages confirming what we've been reporting. Safe Streets knew of tentative plans for Brooklyn Day at least 1 month before the event, and by the end of June, learned the block party was happening on July 1st. That intel never communicated to anyone inside City Hall or Baltimore police. The Safe Streets workers don't have policies in place to notify anyone of a potential threat. Monzi says the 5 conflicts mediated by Safe Streets workers prior to the shooting, which some did involve weapons, were not out of the norm of their daily course of duty. Where did those mediations take place, and is there any indication that the people involved in those mediations were either victims or suspects in the shooting?
I can't say whether these incidents involved victims or suspects in the incident, but what I can say is that from thorough conversations with our staff, these incidents were considered mediated, and so there was not an indication that this was a scene that was about to boil over.
We followed up with Monzi asking several questions, including if Monzi knew the details of the conflicts and couldn't share them, or it wasn't known. Monzi telling Fox 45 News it is unaware of the mediations having involved suspects and or victims of Brooklyn Day. Changes to reporting policies for Safe Streets workers are in the works, like when an event has more than 50 people in a Safe Streets zone, if there are known groups who have had previous issues at the event, or if there is a suspicion of people with multiple weapons in one place, like at the Brooklyn Day event, when no information was reported by Safe Streets workers to anyone in management.
We want to make sure that we're able, moving forward, to have very strong intelligence between Safe Streets and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement so that we have the proper situational awareness.
But when remains the question. In July, Monzi's staff told Fox 45 News it was assessing the internal escalation protocols to inform Monzi when incidents emerge that may be outside their scope of work or require additional resources. That was last month. We're still here talking about the idea of possibly implementing that. How much longer will the community wait for these changes to be made?
We're making changes immediately. The recommendations include a proposed policy, and so we're in the process right now of finalizing that.
But do you have a timeline for when those changes will actually be implemented?
As I mentioned, we have proposed language right now, and so we're looking to finalize that in the coming weeks.
Mavronis says conversations are happening now with Safe Streets sites before any new policy is implemented. But nearly 2 months after the shooting, little change implemented, and leaders of the city's flagship community violence intervention program praised their response to what's being called one of the most painful chapters in Baltimore's history. We also asked Monzi if the public will see the documentation Safe Streets workers used to track the mediations before the shooting took place. So far, Monzi has yet to respond. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
In the wake of the shooting, the Housing Authority of Baltimore has also been heavily criticized for allowing the party to happen in the first place. Agency leaders saying they were not aware Brooklyn Day was taking place despite this scene in Brooklyn homes. Hundreds of people gathering in the community without a permit.
Our staff went home on Friday at 3 o'clock. They were not due back to the site until Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock. Unless someone used the 800 number to notify the emergency services that this was going on, there was no way for us to know what is happening on the site. Should we have known? Of course.
Well, the agency says it is now providing overnight armed security at Brooklyn homes. They are also working to educate residents about emergency protocols, like calling a hotline to report large, potentially dangerous events like the Brooklyn Day Party. It has been 59 days since the mass shooting happened. Since that time, city leaders have only spent about an hour and 45 minutes across 3 news conferences addressing it to the public. In that time, reporters have had about an hour to ask questions. At those 3 news conferences, reporters from all local and some national outlets only had the chance to ask 55 questions. That's 28 people shot, 2 dead, but less than 2 hours spent addressing the tragedy in the last 2 months. We want you to join the conversation. Do you think the city is being fully transparent with the investigation into the Brooklyn Day mass shooting? So far, 92% of those who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Baltimore County's fire union issuing a 16-page report detailing widespread issues and concerns within the department following a rare vote of no confidence against current leadership. The union vote named the fire chief, the assistant fire chief, and deputy fire chief. Only the fire chief narrowly survived that vote.
Morale's pretty low right now. There's a lot of issues that are going on. It seems to be heavy-handed, very significant penalties or discipline imposed.
It's more than just heavy-handed. Members are calling it bullying and harassment.
They do. It just seems like it's an incredible amount of scrutiny that happens.
The report detailing a toxic environment, including accusations of chief officers caught lying during disciplinary hearings and irresponsible hiring practices. For a closer look at this report, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com. And developing now in Baltimore City, a natural gas line break has forced a part of Light Street to be shut down. The fire department has cornered off the section between Lombard and Baltimore streets. Traffic is being rerouted in the area. Fire department says their work may last into the early morning hours tomorrow, so you need to know that for your commute. Hurricane Idalia leaving a path of destruction as it tears through the Sunshine State. Fox 45 News tracking the hurricane's moments and movements as it barrels through Georgia.
The White House pushing back against concerns President Biden may be too old for another term. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with both sides coming up.
And any high seas as well as rip currents from the tropics will be alleviating as we head towards the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, Labor Day looking great down the ocean at Ocean City. Look at those water temperatures in the upper 70s. I'll let you know if we have any impacts from the tropics. In the meantime, though, that's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Well, how old is too old? That is the question many are debating right now when it comes to the U.S. presidency. At 80 years of age, President Biden is the oldest to hold the office and is now seeking re-election. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman looks at both sides of whether or not age is only just a number.
For an 80-year-old president asking for another 4 years, his age now a central conversation. Can Biden keep the pace needed for the job? A majority of voters aren't so sure. 77% of adults surveyed think Biden is simply too old to be effective for another term, much higher than the 51% who feel the same way about Donald Trump, who is 77. CNN pressing the White House about that concern this week.
Joe Biden's been in politics since before, literally since before you were born.
Back when we were marking the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, he went to Kyiv. And people were so impressed that he was able to be there and look strong.
I'm not saying he's not able to walk.
No, but you're talking about his strength, right? You're talking about how he's looking right now. That is.
And Republicans hoping to take his job are seizing on that.
A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. You know that, and I know that. There is no way that Joe Biden's going to finish his term. I think Kamala Harris is going to be the next president, and that should send a chill up every American's spine.
Fueling speculation Biden may not be on the ticket? A planned Fox News debate between current candidate Republican Governor Ron DeSantis against Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom, who is not in the race, but mentioned as a potential backup for Biden.
You think it could be Newsom?
He's waiting in the wings. I think a lot of people are waiting in the wings.
In his soon-to-be-released book called The Last Politician, the author Franklin Foer citing unparalleled insider access when writing, his public persona reflected physical decline and time's dulling of mental faculties that no pill or exercise regime can resist. The White House insisting that President Biden's drive is difficult for staff and even reporters to keep up with, expressing at least publicly that this is not a concern. Mary?
And Scott, you mentioned some of Biden's opponents. What about the ages of the Republican field?
Yeah, if you look at the Republican field, you've got 4 candidates currently who, if they were the one elected president when they were inaugurated in 2024, 2025, then they would be in their 70s. You have 3 in their 60s as well. The youngest, by the way, Vivek Ramaswamy, he would be 39 if he were to take the oath of office.
All right, we'll keep watching it. Scott Thuman, live in D.C. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, Fox 45 News continuing to track the impacts of Hurricane Idalia. These are just some of the videos and pictures we are seeing tonight out of Florida. At the Florida's Governor Mansion, Ron DeSantis' wife Casey shared these photos of a 100-year-old oak tree that fell on their home. Casey, along with the couple's 3 kids, were inside, but thankfully no one was injured. Perry, Florida, hit especially hard. Video here shows several trees knocked down across the entire neighborhood by the storm's strong winds. Also in Perry, a gas station's roof toppled under the storm's winds, ripping out several gas pumps along with it. And over in Cedar Key, rising water leaving entire communities flooded, with some witnesses describing the city as looking like it is part of the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, Idalia has been downgraded to a Category 1 hurricane. Meteorologist Jonathan Myers has the latest on this storm's path. Jonathan?
Yeah, and just south of Perry in Florida, about 7:45 this morning, Idalia made a landfall as a Category 3 hurricane along the Big Bend of Florida. Take a look at the Mile 1 Task Cam, Toyota Ishida Harbor Sky Cam. Few high clouds. Actually, that's part and parcel of the very outer edges of Idalia. And that's going to kind of be our next weather maker. And I say that loosely because we're not going to see any rain or really a whole lot of clouds out of it. But if you are headed down the ocean, it's a very busy time for that next several days. There are coastal flood advisories out, and also there could be some higher than average seas, as well as the potential of some rip currents as Idalia moves its way up the southeastern coastline. Still lots of tropical storm warnings, as well as tornado watches, flood watches all through the day today, and still maybe not a tropical hurricane per se, but it's a tropical storm. It's not a Category 1 anymore. It's fallen out of there, but it's still a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Could put down up to about 3-4 inches of rain just south of the Delmarva, but most importantly, along in concert with Franklin, which is way out there in the open Atlantic, it's going to push some easterly winds on shore. So the Delaware and Maryland beaches next several days, notice a higher than average seas, and we could see some Waves running about 3 to 5 feet. Those will begin to decrease as we head into the weekend, and so will the risk of rip currents. So better news there. For now, again, there are some high clouds on the Mile 1 task cam. 84 winds out of the northwest at 9 behind a cold front. Our saving grace pushing all of the tropical mess out into the Atlantic and away, and actually looking really good as we head towards a big holiday weekend. Now, overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, it's the second supermoon, full moon of the month. It's a blue supermoon. Don't see these very often around here. Had one earlier in August. Looks like we're going to be seeing some at least high clouds to obscure that, but I think you'll still see that supermoon. So check it out. And then into tomorrow, some early clouds, maybe even some showers over extreme southern Delmarva. Then that pushes east, and look at that sunshine, high temperatures breezy near 80 degrees tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to let you know how long that holds and when we could see some record-threatening highs. That's in my exclusive 10-day forecast.
In tonight's Assignment America, remember quiet quitting? Well, now quiet cutting is the latest workplace buzzword, leaving some workers nervous about their future at their company. The National Desk's Angela Brown has the story.
Layoffs are down, but companies are still cutting in ways you may not notice. They're reassigning employees to positions they're having a hard time filling. Some are calling it quiet cutting.
A flurry of headlines touting the latest workplace shakeup, quiet cutting. Career specialist Julie Balke says companies are moving employees around like pieces on a board game.
We have maybe positions that we don't need as much anymore. Maybe we have other positions that we need more. And so we're going to think of like a chessboard. We're going to start moving people around.
The Wall Street Journal bringing quiet cutting to life. Employees say they get a phone call, an email saying their jobs have been reassigned. Take it or leave it.
Employees I talked to had a range of emotions when they got those memos. They were either, relieved that they still had a job, But on the other side, they were angry and confused, and they felt like the new job they had was either, lower status or lower pay or more responsibilities or something that they didn't even have experience in.
Mentions of reassignment or similar terms during company earnings calls more than tripled between last August and this month, according to data from AlphaSense, a financial research platform published in the Wall Street Journal.
Employers are doing this because they know employment is still at 3.5%. We'd rather keep the people we know are decent people and try to repurpose their skills elsewhere.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Your exclusive 10-day forecast. It's a cool down for tomorrow. Breezy with 82, 80 on Friday. Good looking day, but look at this warm up. 85 on Saturday, and one of the bigger heat waves of the summer potentially coming as we wrap up summer unofficially. Sunday, we're at 91, 95. Labor Day could be threatening records there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we could stay into the 90s all the way through the end of next week. You'll need to find somewhere to cool down before 86 next Saturday.
Well, finally tonight, you can take home an original piece of artwork from none other than the Maryland Zoo's rescued otter pup. Take a look at this. The zoo is selling one-of-a-kind masterpieces created by the pup that will help to support her care and the zoo's conservation efforts. You can see the artist there. Very, very hard at work. If you're interested in owning some of her art, you can head to the zoo's website for more details. Original art. Love it. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud is next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Have a great night, and thank you for watching.